Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. Today, I'm honored to have with me Monica Pool Knox. She is a trailblazer in the world of HR and organizational innovation. Monica has been at the helm of HR in leadership tech giants like Microsoft, Sony, and Twitter. In fact, her expertise spans from Fortune 50 companies in sectors as diverse as CPG, entertainment, media, and tech, to dynamic roles in up-and-coming computer software firms. So welcome to the show, Monica.
Thank you, Ross. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, to go a little bit deeper, Monica's passion lies in really revolutionizing HR throughout this sort of phase that we're in of Gen AI and data analytics, talent development, and making her really a force multiplier in transforming the strategic impact of HR. She hails from San Francisco Bay Area. She's also a consultant and advisor to pre-IPO HR tech organizations, shaping business strategies and product roadmaps. As a recognized industry thought leader, Monica voices her insights on leadership, on culture, global talent strategies, and the future of work, particularly focusing in those transformative roles of AI and technology in HR. So join us as we delve into Monica's rich experience and uncover some insights on adapting and thriving in our world of constant change. So my first question for you, Monica, is what's exciting you right now? What are you really looking forward to? What's on your plate? What's getting you really jazzed up?
Yeah. Well, first, Happy New Year and Happy New Year to all of the listeners. I'm just really excited about this year. I think there's a good energy kind of that I'm feeling and a lot of optimism, although a lot of change. And so it's kind of this dichotomy of different dynamics that I find quite exciting. I am excited about Gen AI and technology. I always am. But, and I know we'll delve into this a little bit more in the show, but I think that the opportunity that we have before us with some of the newer technology coming out is like a force change multiplier of business impact. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about how organizations are rethinking the people function. It's been a challenging year for HR leaders, HR professionals across the board. I think we've been at the epicenter of all that has been more ambiguous. I mean, maybe more ambiguous than normal with the convergence of the impact coming out of COVID, mental health, this whole work from the office or work from home conversation that seems to continue. And if I think about what's the right org structure, there's been, quite a bit of layoffs, at least in the tech industry. I sit on the board of a healthcare organization, so there's a whole bunch of other kind of challenges there around people. And I'm excited that I think leaders are starting to see the value of strategic people leadership as a lever for growth in the business. And I just think that that demand is going to continue more and more just because we're in this time of increasingly challenging people dynamics. And if I think about this, not just from a US perspective, but even around the world, we've got two regional wars going on, we've got all kinds of skill shifts happening. And so I'm excited about what the future lies for my profession of human resources.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, with all of these things that we observe it through our own eyes, right? And through our own way of how we see things. And when we met before, and a lot of people I hang out with are optimists, right? We see the opportunity, we're excited by a lot of things. But I equally recognize that there's going to be a lot of disruption through that excitement. A lot of it comes from technology coming in and we experiment with it. Sometimes we strategically plan, right, this is maybe a second order effect, third order effect, and we kind of plan for it and we mitigate. And other times it slaps us in the face unexpectedly because we didn't realize it. It's the first time we've done things. Now, you mentioned a couple of things there about, and there's some layoffs. There's been some layoffs in tech companies. There's going to be a dramatic shift, I feel, in the next few years. So what are the sort of ways in which HR people that, as you said, can be these multipliers, these strategic assets? What are some of the challenges they're going to be really facing in implementing it together with dealing with the human side?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot, and I've heard about this for quite some time, is this focus on skills. And I'm really glad that we're starting to talk more about skills than just have you done this job before, as we think about building up organizations and restructuring teams so that they're effective to achieve whatever business objective that the company may be trying to accomplish. So I think, one, for me, it's skill adaptability, it's skill adjacency, it's being able, and I think again, technology can help us with this. It's being able to recognize the human in more totality, other outside of just this kind of more traditional sense that we've done, which is, okay, what are the roles you've had? And therefore, if you had those roles, then you're going to be successful at the same role, maybe slightly different, and I think that is just a traditional mindset. I think the opportunity that we have is to look at skills and experiences and extrapolate how that person can be effective for the roles that we have going forward. And some of those roles going forward don't look exactly like the roles that we've had in the past. And so how can, we as people leaders help to shape that conversation and to bring in the right technology, or even create the right technology? If you're a tech company, you can do that internally to make sure that we are identifying the right talent for the future needs of the organization. And that can be externally. And I'm thinking about this globally. So not just going to our usual sources of places where we find certain skill sets. So looking at that globally, even in emerging markets, there's some really exciting things happening coming out of emerging markets, as well as internally, and really thinking about our talent pool internally as a rich pool from where to source talent. Now, that talent might not look exactly like, the traditional profile if we're thinking of filling a role that is going to take us, to the future, or take us to achieve something, that's new. And so I think we as people leaders have the opportunity to shape those conversations and think about this whole thing around skills differently.
I'm interested in kind of some of the detail and the metrics within that, right? Where traditionally it's been about, how do we either buy, build, or borrow talent, right?
Yeah.
And key metrics of, the development pathway, maybe employee mobility of movement internally, the, each of those things. Now, when we are now faced with, as you mentioned, a global pool of skills, and we're trying to figure out which skills do we need, when do we need them, how do we deal with those things, and then plot where they fit in these roles that we don't know what they're even called yet, what certain tasks they'll be.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the layer where a lot of technology eats from the bottom, right? It eats from the repetitive and it repeats from the predictable, from tasks. Great. We then have humans for creative, more cognitively complex stuff. Great. But that isn't necessarily easy, is it? So how do we, put those blocks in place for those transitions to maybe have more of those cognitively tasking roles that we'll be doing, problem solving, creativity, those kind of areas? What are the key skills and what are the programs that we can help migrate people through in doing that?
Well, I've always felt that sometimes identifying skills, maybe skills you don't know that people had, often presents itself when you're trying to solve a problem. Because invariably, and particularly in a crisis, that's when you really see what people are capable of doing, because you don't have a lot of time to think about it, and everybody just kind of leans in and they do what they can. And sometimes, I've been shocked to see what people are able to do when we have limited time. We've got to have a solution, a really good one, huge impact. People just kind of lean in. And I've been in part of the organizations where that's really where we've done our best work, is in a crisis, and those skill sets that people have quickly bubble up. So I really do believe that the problem that presents itself also reveals sometimes the skills that people have. I do think that professionals have to be more vocal and saying, hey, I'm going to sign up for this. I can do this. I can do that, as a way of accelerating that. But, certainly there's, the more traditional process, which is, looking at people's background and interviewing them. But I think that when you look at what people have accomplished, and whether that's through a conversation or you just look at their background, you can extrapolate some of the capabilities that they had to have to do those types of things. And so it's going to take more time for us, I think, again, outside of the crisis where things just kind of bubble up, but it's going to take a little bit more time and a different approach to extrapolate what people are capable of, based on the things that they've learned through their career, right? Whether that's, it's typically through experiences. Oftentimes it's not through a class. Classes are great. I advocate for formal kind of sit down training. But even in those type of environments, I think that when people come together and share that kind of group learning, which I love, those conversations and discussions, I think that's rich. So I'm reminded of a kind of learning session I did at one of my companies where we were trying to help managers, get really good at what they were doing. They were all hungry to learn. And, there was some kind of set training that we did, but we allowed time for managers to just talk and dialogue on the issues that, they were dealing with. And you had some more seasoned managers who were providing great insights for, folks who hadn't been managing at, for a very long time. And, it kind of like they said, the rising tide, raises all boats, everybody. And it felt good to do that. So I also love this idea of how do we think about learning, evolving, and, identifying where we've got this amazing capability through each other, you know? So yeah, there's technology, there's a crisis, there's experiences, there's conversation. That's not traditionally, I think, how we've decided, okay, this person's ready for that next role. And I just think we are going to have to be, maybe look at things a little bit differently to identify who does have those cognitive abilities to take us to the next level.
And I think you mentioned something really interesting there, that a lot of it shows up, these skills, when we're under pressure, when there's a real challenge and real problem in it, and it shows up, and we can expand and stretch ourselves and realize what we are or aren't capable of within those things. When leaders are faced with a problem and it's a significant one, that they're under pressure, that they have to get an outcome, they have to get a result, how do they overcome the fear of, well, I'm not sure because I haven't seen evidence of it. I haven't seen the role title, or I haven't seen these other bits before, but yet I want to give you a go, because people need to be given the opportunity to show up. But from a leader's perspective, that can be quite difficult sometimes. And I've seen it where they're under so much pressure, they've got to get this outcome, and they're really, find it hard to select what the team makeup is, who should be on that team for that project, for that challenge. The higher up the perceived risk of failure of that project is.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a great question. And what I have seen is that managers will often go to the usual suspects, right? They have a crisis. We're going to go to, Sally or Johnny or whoever the person is that they often go to, who has, a pretty good track record for delivering in a crisis situation. But, I've also seen cases where managers may go to the usual suspects and that person's like, I can't really help you. I'm not exactly sure what to do. Or sometimes they take that step forward and it becomes evident pretty quickly that they're not the person for this particular job, and things crumble. And then it's like a scramble. So, how does a manager go about identifying who the right people are? I think listening is really important. I mean, when you pull so first of all, at more senior levels, you really have to trust your leaders that are closer to, closer to the work to assess that talent. Because if you're, really high up, your opportunity to assess talent is very limited. And oftentimes, we're in the elevator or we're down the hall. We have these quick chats. Oh, this person's really, talented, when in fact you have a very small snippet of what they're working on or what they're capable of doing. So I think, more senior leaders really have to trust their leaders on their team to make those assessments. And then to kind of fall into that usual suspects trap, I think that one, you have to give people the opportunity to raise their hand, and there are personalities of, folks who are going to raise your hand without asking. They're going to like, hey, I can do this. And I think we have to be really cognizant of the fact that, there could be some bias in there. It's like, well, I've never really seen you do this before, and you're saying you can do it, so I'm just not really sure, right? Or you haven't worked here as long as this person, so maybe you don't really know, when in fact that person may have done something similar in a previous company. So you have to be really cautious and careful and thoughtful around not injecting our own kind of our usual suspects bias in there. But I also believe in bringing the, problem to the team and have a conversation around the team, and you'll see people bubble up that have energy around the problem, that have, thoughts and creative ways of either solving the problem or going about solving the problem. And so, I'm a huge proponent of, bringing tricky problems, to the extent that you can, because obviously sometimes some of the issues might be super sensitive, but we deal with a lot of those in HR, and then have the team engage and see where the energy bubbles up. But I think what you bring up is a real common problem. Is
It's
we
a
just
challenge, right?
the
Yeah.
folks,
And
yeah, that we know.
you touched on, the usual suspects. We stay in the groove of where we're trying to mitigate failure because, Sally or Peter, they've done it before, or there's some form of evidence and data that I'm getting, right? I'm listening, I'm thin slicing this. I think there's an opportunity for us maybe, and I'd love your view on this, to unlearn some of that and
Mhm.
make room for the surprises, make room for the naivety, make room for the wild cards,
Yeah.
and hedge them,
Yeah.
so that we go, okay, there's some usual suspects. Let's put some wild cards in. Let's get some surprises. Let's get the people who haven't raised their hands and say, you've got to come in there. Because a lot of innovation, a lot of these challenges come from the naive mind, come from the silly questions
Yeah.
and come from the inexperienced that see things differently, look at it differently. And I think now is a great opportunity for us to push that lever just a little bit further in that direction and maybe have, with transparency, multiple teams working on similar problems. And I'm interested because a lot of this is, in my mind, around the diversity aspect, diverse
Mhm.
of culture, of background, of experience, of loud voice, not loud voice,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, and create that sort of playfulness in the worst situation. It's easy to play when it's safe. Can we
Yeah.
still play when it's right up against it, when the
Yeah.
fire is really burning? Can we get the opportunity for that? And I'd love your thoughts on whether that is pie in the sky thinking never going to happen, Ross, or
I
do you know
know,
what,
Ross.
maybe there could be a movement towards
I think
that.
it's a little pie in the sky, to be honest. If I think about the crisis and we're our backs against the wall and, the inferno is burning and you're like, oh, we got to take care of something. It's hard to think in the mode of play. But I think you bring up a great point, which is, can we create environments and situations when there's not that inferno burning, and be more playful in times outside of crisis? And so, there's a few ways. Like, I think about employee resource groups. I love employee resource groups. And I remember at a previous company where, I was leading this effort where we put employee resource groups in for the first time at the company, and they just grew like wildfire. And people loved being a part of employee resource groups. And they were put together not just around, kind of the traditional race and gender, but it was also, we had a, employee resource group around project managers, because the way that the company managed was through projects, and people wanted to develop, better skills about how to be a project manager. We had another employee resource group that was MBAs, people with advanced degrees, and, kind of their whole thing was give us a real business problem, and like a consulting agency, we're going to solve it. And we're going to bring, different perspectives, because all these folks were from different functional areas to solve it. And the kind of output that we got from what I call naturally cross-functional groups, some of these folks were addressing problems in their functional area, but most of those folks were not in the functional area. It was amazing to see the output of what these folks could do. And then also natural leaders bubbled up. I just love our young professionals group. At the time, it was the millennials, were the young professionals group at the time. And they had like 500 members of their employee resource group. And so the leaders of that group were managing an organization of 500 people. And how many young professionals step into a role and manage 500 people? Like, most people aren't going to have that experience. And so we were able to see, and again, it wasn't a crisis situation, how people performed in, environments that they never would have been in their day-to-day jobs. And so I'm a big proponent of, creating those environments, whether that's employee resource groups or other ways. I think as a manager, folks can give, teams or individuals projects to do to see how they perform. I mean, we should be, as managers, thinking always about the development of our team, and mining for that gold, right? Mining for those diamonds where we know they're in there, but sometimes we have to create conditions where we can find them, because not always will people raise their hand, and sometimes people don't even know what they're capable of. I remember having a conversation with one of my team members who was so talented, and I could just see this person advancing, and I kept telling her, you're really on kind of this runway towards a path of director. And she'd never thought of that before. It just never had occurred to her. But I explained to her what I was seeing in her capability and how that compared to other directors within the organization. And it got her starting to think, right? And I would give her stuff that would, allow her to operate at that level. And it was super cool to see, after a couple of years, she stepped into a director role, fully confident, ready, capable. And I just think as managers, we need to do more of that.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? This almost courage element. We need courage when there is no capability, when we don't have a capability, and we might not even see it, but someone else might see it in us, of that future potential or what might be an opportunity. One of the things I was really interested to speak to you about, a number of our clients are going through significant restructures at the moment. And a lot of the leaders are feeling a sense of lack of clarity, of, they're living in almost this ambiguous kind of situation of what's going on. And some of these are big organizations that are having, significant restructures. And a lot of them care about their people. Right? They love the people that are around them, what they're doing, all of those things. And there's this sort of duality of some fear of loss of people and projects, and excitement of, okay, what now is coming forward and what's happening. I'm curious, in your experience, any clients that you're working with, any stories that you've got, that restructures, I think, is going to get more and more prolific over the next few years. What experience can you share, or some insights that you might be seeing in current clients or past roles that you've had to deal with that in the trenches? If you're somebody that, okay, my team now looks different, or I've been told it's looked different, or I've been moved somewhere else, what do they do? How do they deal with that? And if someone's in a HR role, especially, how can they support that?
Yeah. Well, your question reminds me of what's happening with college football. I don't know if you keep up with much college football. I have a son who's aspiring to enter into that arena next year, and it's been interesting watching, because to your point, you've got these on steroids reorgs. You've got kids going into the transfer portal to transfer to other teams that the coaches didn't know wanted to leave. You've got people who've committed to play for a particular program who don't like whatever scat going on, whether it's a coaching change or some change, and they decommit, and then the coaches are like, wait, you've got coaches who have decided to go to other programs, and they're inheriting maybe a team that's frustrated that the other coach left, and so people are disengaged, they're leaving. And I say that because it's the world I'm in right now, but I do think it's akin to
100%.
the
Yeah.
need for
Yeah.
organizational change, right? Because there could be, obviously different dynamics, but it's similar in that you've got talent. It could be driven by talent, but it could be driven by market conditions as well, where you've got to reorganize to get ready for those changing market conditions. And this is why I'm a big proponent. You're going to hear me say this again and again. It's so important to have a great HR partner. And I really love the kind of the triad of, having the HR partner, and having, the person who's maybe responsible for strategy, maybe in the CFO, really as this kind of triad to really be thinking about, your talent strategically. And so it's really, I love the idea of thinking about where do we need to be. I remember we went through this in Microsoft, with our sales organizations. It's like we knew we needed our sales organization to be much more technical, but that was not necessarily traditionally how Microsoft recruited its sales folks. It didn't require a deep technical knowledge. Well, things were shifting and changing, and so Microsoft decided, we've got to really shift our kind of our talent model for how we go to market. And so, we're looking for people who had more technical skills, and that wasn't necessarily what the organization had at the time. And so I think you create your future state, what has to be true in order for us to compete. And then you do your best who can make that flip, because there are some folks who can flip to roles, structures really fluidly, really easily. And then there's always three levels, right? People who can make that flip, people who want to make that flip, maybe they're not ready, but they're eager, hungry, they want to learn to be able to transition into whatever the future state of the org will be. And then some people who just don't even want to go, they don't want to get on the bus at all. So, it first starts with your desired state, and then it's assessing your talent. And, who do you have within the organization who fit into those three buckets? There's a lot of technology too, I think, that's available to do that. Even there's a lot of information that shows where talent exists around the world. And, it could mean, hey, we've been operating with our headquarters in Dallas, but we really need to think about shifting that to London for whatever reason, right? Or to, Boston, or to Colorado, whatever the case might be, because of what market conditions, could be talent dynamics with available talent. And there's a lot of great data sources and tools. And again, this is where genAI can come in to help you, model out some of the stuff. So restructure is really hard. And, I also, you asked me ahead earlier about, kind of the biggest part about this is, how do people manage change? Because I remember earlier in my career, change made me nervous. It was just like, wait, but what I've learned over the years is that change is a constant part of life. I mean, anything that's not changing is either dying or it's dead, right? I mean, that's the two alternatives. And if you look at, a pool of water that's stagnant and isn't being flushed out and flowing like a stream or a river, things die in it. It doesn't even smell good, right? And so I think I've evolved to really understand that change is a part of life. It's a part of something that's healthy and that's growing. And so it's not if it's going to change, it's when it's going to change. And in what direction is it going to change? And so to the extent that leaders can also get out in front of that before you have to, I think that's also a winning strategy.
It's interesting. You brought up college football, and I want to paint a picture of how I see change at the moment in terms of, right, if you know the rules, right, if it's a sports game of football, whatever it is, you know the rules, and you go, okay, there's this many players, there's, two halves or how many quarters and, bits there will be. There's a direction we're playing in, and there's where the goal is or the line is, right? So we know those rules. If we then play full out for that 90 minutes, whatever the stake is, and nothing changed within that, haven't changed a rule mid-game, haven't moved the goalpost mid-game, everything is fairly structured within that. I might have a few bits that say, I see this has happened. This is the score. This is the flow. So I'll take somebody off the bench and I'll replace the people in there. But the rules have stayed the same.
Yeah.
I think the challenge we've got now is halfway through the first 5 minutes, the goalposts have moved. You set your strategy, and then all of a sudden we're playing widthways instead of lengthways. And then conditions like the weather changes, and then, a football becomes another, instrument at the same time as people changing, so they're on the field, off the field, of all of those things. So I think the challenge is that there's period of time when change happens. If we know the rules for a certain period, we can prepare for it. We tend to go, okay, yeah, I know how to win. If we don't know how to win, because where is the goal? Where's it moved to? What's happened to it? Suddenly we had all of this kit that we bought out and we spent loads of money on it. And they've come in with genAI and it's made this redundant, and this has happened and this has happened. So I think it's the speed of when is very, very regular, and getting more so. So it's disrupting what was hey, got my strategy, let's work through that. I know my desired state, Monica. What if my desired state is no longer my desired state midway through? And so I think that is a very real reality that people are sensing and feeling. And so is it no, we've got to nail it down and make sure we get those things and we commit to it? Or are we just got to get better at being ambidextrous in all of those situations to be able to go, okay, goal's over there now. Come on then, everybody. I've got to make sure everybody's told really quickly, goal's there now. Oh, yeah. Bloody move the goalpost versus, oh, it's there, right? Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's whilst I often talk in analogies a lot, it's from that sense of what I'm seeing and hearing through conversations.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some element that does have to be anchored, right, in a business. And you're absolutely right. The goalposts are changing. And it's like, yeah, first we're trying to run the football down the field. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, it's a beach ball, and not even a ball at all. Now it's, we're actually trying to, do something completely different. It's
yeah, we don't need defense anymore.
Yeah.
Because now that's a technology that's doing defense. We've got a shields up or whatever it is.
Exactly.
And I think if we come to some practical bits as we round out, you've often emphasized this importance of data in shaping strategies. So what are those sort of early indicators that might be able to help us know where that puck's going to be, know where those things are shifting? What data should people be looking at in order to get early indicators of where the goal's going to be and what players I need on the field? What are the metrics? What are the things that you're seeing right now that will help from a data perspective in what's going on?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've always loved is when we've had an individual or team of people, that's what they do all day, is they do market analysis. They are always looking for those early indicators, because quite frankly, if you have people who are in the trenches building an operational plan, to what extent are they spending their time looking at data indicators? I mean, some, right? But not necessarily all day, every day. So I love to have people who have accountability for that are bringing those insights to the team to identify where there could be growth or de-investment in one area, what other competitors are doing. I mean, the data is there. You just have to spend the time looking at it. It could be a new technology coming up. I've been working in AI since 2016. And, it wasn't necessarily Gen AI, but we could see that coming. We could see that capability coming. And so it did, but, for folks who maybe hadn't worked in the technology, what kind of engagement, did say someone within an organization have if AI was not a part of your kind of, I don't know, your foundation or the way that you did your business? How did you engage with the folks who were maybe in that type of technology? And so part of it too is this technology is a huge change driver within it, always has been. And so if you are working at a company that isn't necessarily a tech company, although I think every company has become a tech company, you're going to maybe have to do a little more reading, go to more conferences, engage with individuals who are front line in that, and ask questions about what do you see coming? Because in 2016, 17, and I was deep working in AI, the capability that we have through Gen AI, we could see that. We could see that. Now, to what extent was it going to blow up? I mean, we didn't know. Um, but I think, that's one thing, is recognize where you don't have a day-to-day engagement, and engage people who do have that day-to-day engagement with, say, for example, technology or other types of processes, so that you can stay up to date. I mean, so reading, conferences, conversations. I think also people data is interesting to look at, when you look at kind of where there's this influx of skill sets. And so when people go into LinkedIn and they identify what skills they have, you start to see emerging skills pop up, and if you're, again, have someone who's paying attention to this, actually, this is something the recruiting organization can do. You can start to see, hey, a year ago, 2% of folks in the healthcare space identified this particular skill as something they possessed. But now 2 years later, 1 year later, whatever it is, we're seeing, 15%. And so you're starting to see emerging skills. If you pay attention to where skills are emerging, then you can start to see the trends, right? But I mean, here's the thing, Ross, I don't think that it's like the stock market. Who can accurately 100% always predict the stock market? Anybody that says that they can is probably not telling you the truth. And I think it's the same way with industry and skills and technology and evolution of what the customer might demand. The best thing we could do is pay attention to what's happening now with the early indicators, and then extrapolate, okay, if that continues, personalization is a great example, right? I remember seeing a lot of personalization. You could order your own shoe on Nike and design it for yourself. We're now in this huge age of personalization, and so how did you see that coming? There's probably some early indicators. Could you see it's going to be as big as it is today? Probably not. So I think we do the best that we can do, but I would advocate for there to be individuals or teams that they're spending a lot of most of their time
On
looking
looking
at
at
this,
those.
and then pay attention to what they say. Sometimes they speak and we don't listen to them.
I guess it's linked also to the speed of deployment. So how quickly from that indicator can we deploy a tentacle out, an experiment out, an MVP or something out to see, does it stick? Does it become something, or is it a cul-de-sac? And that speed of link.
It gets down to taking risks, right? Right. And
Yeah,
sometimes risk will pan out, and sometimes
yeah,
those risks won't.
no. I read a article today of the 6,000 jobs that I think it was Thomson Reuters who did the survey in the UK that are being advertised at the moment. 27, this was in the tech industry, 27% are now citing some form of AI skill requirement, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know that we really know what that means,
Yeah.
but there is such this energy around it, right? So part of it is, what do we need to mobilize in our skills linked to what gaps there are? What are people recruiting for? That is equally an indicator of what we should internally mobilize. But if I asked you, what are leaders investing in right now? What are those top initiatives or top skills that they're looking to deploy programs around, looking to increase their capability around? What are they? And then I've got one final question before we close up after that, Monica. So
Yeah, I mean,
what are leaders investing in? What should they invest in right now?
yeah, I mean, again, AI is where I see a lot of investment, a lot of conversation. I mean, AI is it's a very broad technology. There's lots of different forms of AI. And so we say AI, what does that really mean? And to your point, people are identifying that they have certain skills in AI, when in fact you dig down into it, it's like, well, no, that's actually just good database management, right? And so really, truly investing in AI capability, I see that. Um, there's also, like I said, a convergence of a lot of very challenging people issues that are having pretty huge impact on a company's ability to scale, to, if they're fighting for their lives, survive. And so I think creative thinking is always going to be a huge skill set in demand. How can we think about, again, back to return to the office, hybrid work? How do we think about it that in a way that works for our employees, for our customers, and for our business success? And so how creative can we be in coming up with a solution, and that using that as an example? So I think creative thinking is another skill. And I think learning agility, and I don't know, honestly, how do you teach learning agility? I think that's I'm sure you can teach it, but I see that skill set that people are looking for is how quickly can you pivot and learn something new.
Yeah,
Um, so those
it's
are the
important.
things that, yeah, so those are the things that I'm seeing. You've been hearing a lot about resilience. I think that's a
Mhm.
huge one, obviously. I mean, but look, we're seeing data tells us that CEOs are quitting their jobs in massive,
Yeah,
record. CHROs are moving on. It's harder to be a people manager now than ever before.
yeah,
So if you're really good at managing teams and people, like rock star status, like, there's a huge demand
a lot of
there. And I
opportunity.
don't even know if some of these things are much different than they might have been 10 or 20 years ago. It's like, can we do some of these things that maybe have been around for quite some time that we're winning skills, just do them really well
Do them
now
now. Yeah.
while we're learning new technology?
Yeah, sometimes it is the basics, right? Listening, communication,
Right.
influencing
Em-
people,
Empathy. That's right.
empathy, all of those things of the skills, and doing it when we're under pressure and in a changing environment. The last question I ask every guest, Monica, is linked to adaptability, linked to unlearning, linked to curiosity, and it's around firsts. And the
Mm.
question is, when was the last time you did something for the first time, and what was it?
Oh my gosh, the last time I did something for the first time. Huh. Um, I mean, the first thing that came to mind for me, it's not the first time, but was skiing. I mean, I love to ski, but I skied as a kid, and then for like years, like 20, years or so more, I didn't ski. And then when we moved here, we wanted to be on the slopes a lot. So we taught our son, he got up there, on the snowboard, and my husband's from Michigan, so he's a great skier. But I remember getting on the skis after I hadn't been on them for quite some time, and it did feel like the first time. I was, an adult, so I had a different mindset than I did as a kid, obviously, learning something new, and I felt like I was learning all over again. And there's a fear, right? You can be going 20 miles an hour, going down a hill. Um, there's skill involved, there's technique, there's danger. You can kill yourself if you don't do it right. So there's a lot at risk. And
All the things as a kid we don't even think about.
we don't even think about, right? We don't
No.
even, it doesn't even, kind of enter our brains.
Yeah.
And so I just that was the first thing that came to mind. Maybe it wasn't the first time, but given the environment had changed, I'm a little older too, right? So, I was definitely a lot more limber when I was, in my younger years. And so just the first time down, it's like, you're falling, and you kind of get used to those falls. You're like, oh, well, it's not so bad. And then you're remembering your technique. I remember calling my brother who's an amazing skier. I'm like, okay, help me with, the technique of the turns and all that. And
Yeah.
so it was this combination of kind of getting over your fear of what potentially could happen if you messed it
Mhm.
up. Um, and then getting a little technique in there, and then allowing myself to fail, and then just keep trying and going. And now it's really fun.
I love it. I love it. It's really beautiful. I've asked that question of many people, and so much diverse thinking of whether it is a true first or it's the mindset of it being a first. And I love that lasting impression for me, that how can it feel like the first time when I do something that I've done regularly? How do I bring, a first attitude mindset to be open to new data, new things, ask questions rather than, oh, I got this. I assume I know it, I'm off. That is a almost a blind way to live life, that
Yeah.
to be able to observe, to be able to respect that every time we do something, it could be the first time if we decide. Are we listening? Are we observing? Are we curious? Are we wanting to learn, to be better, to witness, and reflect in that just beauty of experience,
Yeah, I
the
love that,
dance of life. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Ross, because, if you're starting a new company, for example, you're starting in a new role, or you get a new boss or a new team member. I love what you said about just that recognizing of this respect. Like, yeah, maybe I've done this before, but there is a fresh new morning in every new interaction, every new experience, that if we just stay in wonder and if we stay curious, and if we allow ourselves to just experience this thing, whatever it is in our
Yeah.
lives that's new, we can actually really enjoy the process of the change and not be so fearful of it.
Yeah. It reminds me, actually, just as you were speaking there, one of the Amazon pieces of "It's always day one." That is a key mantra for them. It's always day one. And I just like that attitude and idea of, not getting complacent, and always the excitement of it's day one.
It's day one.
It's day one of those things. So lovely. It's been a real delight. Thank you for sharing your insights, your energy and joy. I've loved every minute of it, and I hope that our listeners have gained some insights, got some ideas, and maybe even some thoughts and reflections and questions. So thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Ross.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalised report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQ assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams and organisations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favourite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.